As we move into the future with animation, things seem bleak with the rise of AI, animators being treated horribly, movies being cancelled for dumb reasons, and just companies taking advantage of the media. Now, of course, we could have more amazing movies like the Looney Tunes animated movie The Day the Earth Blew Up, which was horribly advertised, but it was an amazing movie. I enjoyed the animation, and it was made by people who really cared for 2D animation. Now, my point here is that artists are some of the most powerful people in the world. I mean, sometimes, and then we have the stuff like the Hamilton Miku binder. But when thinking about how artists can come together, it's really inspiring.
Don't be jealous just cause I got 2 bitches.
But when thinking about how artists can come together, it's really inspiring. So I decided to go back to a sort of old series from a channel called Glitch, where they have made some amazing shows and even a new one on the way. However, the main series I wanted to talk about today is Murder Drones, a dark comedy about robots having to fight against the murder drones as we investigate the hidden secrets of the world and what it has to offer. I even made my own Murder Drones OC. Yeah, I can see why they didn't hire me. So, we start off on an abandoned planet where our main character, Uzi, explains about how people on this planet had died, so the robots were free until the humans on another planet didn't like that they could do whatever they wanted, so they ended up sending murder drones. However, compared to the rest of her class and everyone on the planet, they would rather stay in a bunker where they're protected by the door her father made, which everyone praised him for. You can already get what kind of character this is, as Uzi is a rebellious character who wants to see the outdoors compared to everyone who wants to stay inside and be safe, kind of like the Groods. Of course, Uzi manages to get out by saying she needs to do a project, which leads her to getting caught by the murder drones, until she shoots one of them in the head and he mistakes her for being another murder drone, and talking about how he doesn't want to kill and getting a conscience about why they're trying to kill these robots. This robot is N. Yes, that's his name. If you have a problem with it, then you wouldn't like L. But N begins to question that thought while also talking about how he has a crush on another one of the murder drones. However, the other drones do come back, J and V, and if you got a problem with it, you still wouldn't like L or the alphabet. Okay, sorry, these just keep popping up out of my head. Of course, though, you can tell where this is already going, as it leads to N being judged for talking to a robot and letting her go. So, to have a good image, he breaks into the bunker and allows J and V to enter and killing the drones. However, this causes N to have a change of heart and killing J and keeping V alive as Uzi gets banished from the bunker. With that, we have the setup to murder drones. Gosh, that's a lot happening in one episode. Now that we have the setup, we can introduce our lovely cast of drones, starting off with Uzi. As I stated, she's the rebellious type of character as we see throughout the series, fighting different murder drones and trying to discover the secrets of humans and what they even is going on. Wow, I can't talk, but let's keep going. While most people wouldn't like Uzi because of her stereotypical attitude, I actually love Uzi. She is one of the funniest things to me. And yeah, I don't want to sound like a Redditor, being like, she's perfect, oh my gosh, r/feet for this one. When in reality, she isn't. Uzi is so the easiest way to say it. She's cringy, saying things like talking about her sad relationship with her dad, and acting just generally strange, which mostly would put off a lot of people. I know, because I streamed this to my friend, and he did not like it, but I adored her, mainly because I was super cringy back then. I mean, look! At first, I can't lie, I did think it was cringy, but I sort of just embraced that fact and the thought of how awkward I was back then, and just had fun with it. Especially as the series goes on, she fights a lot more and even gains more abilities to fight back, basically becoming a murder drone and unlocking her true potential, which I must say made her a lot more interesting as she was able to fight back rather than just using N or having to play strategically. She's a very insecure girl, and I feel that's understandable whenever her dad never treated her right, and she would always be in his shadow. Her dad was someone everyone looked up to because of his ideas and protection, while she's seen as a crazy girl who wants to fight and figure out the secret. I mean, she can't help it. The sky fell on her and it was an acorn. You know what? Maybe Murder Drones is just inspired from Chicken Little, and instead of Chicken Little, it's a robot you can draw on DeviantArt. I think that's what I appreciated a lot about her character, is the fact that as she further progresses through the story, she's a very introverted person who is unwilling to open open up to people. And then even with N, she still struggles to show emotions with him because of the fear of him judging her for who she really is, which is portrayed really well in the camp scene when they're falling from the sky, and N gives her a therapy session. It's silly, but at the core of it, she shows some emotion and she tries to open up to him, which back then she would have just joked and shoved it off pretty much. You know what, Uzi? You're going on the kin list right next to Chicken Little, Uncle Ian, Mighty Eagle, and Lancer. You know what? Maybe it was a good thing I worked all summer. We didn't need to make this. Which I think really shows some character growth for her as she gains her abilities and begins to express her emotions more fluently, rather than shutting off everything and pushing people away, learning to embrace these murder drones, which reminds me...
But just so you know, don't get no ideas. I think both of you are really fucking ugly.
Now, of course, I gotta talk about the murder drones, which are some of the main characters in this series, which I'm probably just gonna go through the murder drones as a whole, because it's all just kind of the same for all of them, besides N. I guess we should start off with N, as these most prevalent characters besides Uzi. Now, comparing N to the other characters who follow the pattern of bad guy turned good, he kind of falls flat majestically, if that makes sense. So N, of course, is evil, but then automatically turns good when talking with Uzi and having to make a choice of looking at the bigger picture, which I guess shows as a character growth, but the show is so fast paced that it kind of just happens, which I'll be talking about later. So in the end, N is just good because he is, okay? Don't question it. He's kind of childish and silly, which is what I think runs well with Uzi, as she's not taken seriously by other people. However, whenever it comes to N, he just follows her commands, and then they end up becoming friends as the series goes on, which has some mature moments as N tries to step up and be a role model for Uzi, not letting her get into her head and destroy how she perceives herself. The dynamic they have is like those cringy TikToks where it's like, I'm a golden retriever boy and my black cat girlfriend. Basically, it's like that, where he just listens to her ramblings and cringy moments without judging her. However, we do see that he does genuinely care for Uzi's well-being, and I appreciate that it isn't just Uzi alone, because while I love Uzi, alone she would have been kind of too much for me. So it's great that both of them can share their moments together and really play off of each other's in the dialogue. I'm not taking another take. Now for the other murder drones, I don't really care for them, to be honest. I really don't. They're not really my thing. Honestly, it's just J and V are just kind of like there. I mean, like, spoilers, I'll just give you a couple of seconds. 1, 2. Okay, this is taking way too long. All right, so basically, freaking, I can't even remember what their names are. One of them dies and then they come back, and then I was like, oh, they're back. Like, it even took me a little bit to process about what even happened, and I was like, okay, so they really just didn't stick with me, even with their like little character moments. Even then, I'm just like, it's okay, they don't really do anything for me. I'm more focused on Uzi and friggin' Ends. Or it's like that time whenever I first saw the Angry Birds having feet in the Angry Birds movie.
Peter, what are you doing? Crack? What the fuck?
It just does nothing for me. While we do get lore for some characters and see how their past was for murder drones, it made me realize how boring this would have been if it focused on the murder drones rather than Uzi. Also, the side characters, they are genuinely so bland. Yes, I can understand that they're not the main focus, but when they bring them up in scenes and interacting with the main characters, you would expect them to have some sort of personality that makes them a character that stands out. Of course not. Why in the world would they ever do that? Because why bother expanding this world with side characters when they can be typical stereotypes such as the girl bully, the dad, the guy, and who could forget the D-O-R-E, the door? I know, he's my favorite character because I have a door OC that is inspired by the show as well. Hello, I'm the door. My hobbies consist of long walks on the beach, going to furry cons, and didgeridoo. Now I can start nitpicking at things from our main two characters. Alright, let's start off with Uzi. When I say she's cringy and how I think it's relatable between how I was back then, again, look at me back then, that doesn't mean I think it's the best, especially with the dad jokes and her unstable relationship with her dad and emotions. Now that there is exactly what I don't want. Of course, I don't put anything off just because of a slow or bad start. Hey. But in all honesty, that is one of my main major issues whenever it comes to Uzi, where it comes off as far too overbearing. Not for me though, I eat that slop up.
Well, time to go to work.
Not only that, but I feel like she never really has closure with her dad, and while of course she has a full right to hate her dad, but I think there would have been more impact to the show if she had more feelings and thoughts than just, haha, I'm emo, bite me. Of course she has moments with N specifically, but I wish it was more to her than only N. Speaking of N, I have an issue with him. How is a major thing about his character liking V just go away instantly? Automatically growing a bond with Uzi because they hang out together, and then they finally admit their feelings near the end, but still, this character change seems just so forced to me. At that point, why include he liked V in the first place? Now, of course, I love Uzi and N together, but geez, it feels like a roll the clip! The dynamic they have is like those cringy TikToks where it's like, I'm a golden retriever point and my black cat girlfriend. Of course, I'm just nitpicking really, but I feel like if we're gonna establish that N in the beginning likes someone, then it just instantly shifts over. It feels quick. In the end, it doesn't really matter. I'm still a nerd in his room talking about a show that was made a couple years ago and the robot couple that fell in love. A love between two robots makes my 58-year-old wrinkles happy. However, I think there is a certain point where I think the series fails with things in some areas, not just with the characters. Of course, don't think I'm just bashing on the series because of some little nitpicks, because I genuinely love this show, and just because I love it doesn't mean I can't have some criticisms. One of my main first critiques is the fast-paced nature of each episode, and if you aren't paying attention and locking in for some parts, you could quite literally not understand some of the things about the show, which of course that happened to me because I'm a little dumb baby. But it feels like if there's so much crammed into these 20-minute episodes, and I feel like if I'm not pulling a Matt Pat and doing the pose the whole time and I'm watching it, I feel like I'm just missing these things. Especially as we get into the second half of the series, I feel like I'm questioning every single thing like a Marvel fan who only watches the movies and not the shows. Another problem that I have with the show is that the fact that the world building, it's just kind of horrendous. Like, I feel like I have so many questions about the worlds, and rather than them being solved, they stack up more and more. I know that kind of sounds nitpicky, like an anime fan asking for the power scaling of Jibanyan and Psyche-K. Alright, today we have two opponents, and we have Psyche-K, who's basically a god among many, and then a cat that gets beaten by a bus. Okay, but he did have prep time. Some questions I had were like things like, why does no one care about the drones? How big is this bunker? Why is death taken so inconsistently? As some deaths are just happening and no one cares, and some deaths are monumental or traumatizing. Why do they go camping when they said it's forbidden to go outside? And still, why does N just quickly shift his love from V to Uzi? I probably had more questions, but these were the main ones that stuck out to me whenever I was watching, which of course none of this is explained. I wish they had more things within the bunker than just school, Uzi's room, and like the door. Hey, it's me, the door again. I got a dog. Hey, he's peeing on me! Not only that, but as soon as the second half happened, it's just a lore dump after lore dump. And while everything is still interesting, we have these tense moments of thinking that V is going to die, and I literally do not care at all. Like, she's just there, like I said. Her character is deep and has some things to her character, but like, I genuinely don't care for this character because she isn't focused on enough, of course, as much as Uzi and N. But in the end, there's no emotions I feel from anyone else dying or anything else happening besides N and Uzi because they just focus on them. Of course, some crazy things like Uzi's mom is alive, but oh no, my brain couldn't process it because I looked at my phone for 1 second and now I gotta rewatch the whole entire episode at this point. You see what my problem is here? So much lore dump in such a little time, and this is just where the series has some of its downfalls, as the first half I really love it, and just the second half, it just isn't much to me. The location, the new characters, the lore dump in 20-minute episodes, it's all just too much. And I don't want to sound like a dumb baby, but it's just, I feel like if I look away and I don't look into the details, then I'm just not gonna like understand. I literally had to look at a video for this, like I'm not even joking. Not only that, but the series just ends with a joke and it's just credits roll summarizing what happened and what's been done. And geez, all this series just made me want to watch more, but it's not giving the more. It just ends there. In the end, just collapsing in on itself. Not the ending though, that was peak.
What?
No, alright. I know that sounds bad.
But genuinely, the ending was one of the coolest fights ever, as they fight Sin, basically just in short terms a drone who was improperly thrown out and becoming a vessel for something evil, and basically the cause for everything for murder drones and other massacres because evil backstory and backstory of murder drones, even though it's just a huge lore dump episode. Yeah, I know. I didn't really mention her a lot, but like, it's my video. I do what I want. Plus, I don't know how to literally explain the whole lore without making this probably already a 20-minute video. It's 40 minutes just to explain the whole lore. Oops, sorry. You can have that at least. Yummy. That's why you have YouTube. You can watch it there for free.
What?
In short terms, Uzi gets the same power basically as I said she gains throughout the story, and it's basically like JoJo versus Dio, where it's basically the same stand ability and just duking it out. But Uzi is free as she finally embraces herself as who she is, her love for N, and how weird she is, the issues she deals with, and finally embracing who she is and fights against Sin with her friends as the most legendary music plays, Nightcore.
Luigi, I just want to touch you all over your manly chest. Want to bury my face in your breast. Luigi, you're so freaking sexy.
Yeah, this is the coolest thing ever, and I love the fighting in this show. I think it's really amazing, and I haven't even mentioned the other fights like the prom one, which was cool with the team up of N and Uzi. Not only are the fights amazing, but I think the lore that this show has is interesting. Of course, it's fast-paced, but with the amount of lore dropping as the story progressed, it always just left me wanting more, which of course is a good thing, just depending on how you look at it. Because it did make me more invested in the show, but it also has some negative aspects whenever I question a lot of things that just weren't really explained, but let's not focus on that. I think the dynamics between the characters works really well, as there's much more emotion that you can feel with scenes just by faces. The scene with Uzi and her dad when he abandons her, you can feel the gut-wrenching tension. The therapy scene with Uzi and N, you can really feel the emotions through the body and face, and that's something Murder Drones does really well. It doesn't just shove in your face their emotions, they say it out loud over and over again, but the emotions are conveyed more through the body, which will always be a beautiful way of expression and shows the personality of a character, and I think it definitely does better than Hazbin Hotel.
You know what? I don't even have a joke for this. I don't want to look at Hazbin Hotel. The joke's over. I hate this show.
In the end, I think Murder Drones is something that should be praised from its hard work and the dedication from this small team. I think it's great to see what people can create. It really inspires me whenever I've been watching these different pilots and small shows made by YouTubers. I can really feel a difference between people wanting to tell their own story and not being restricted by companies on what they can and can't do, not being forced to end too soon and write the story how they just want to, which is something commonly seen in TV shows like Steven Universe, Clone High, Glitch Techs, and even more shows that never really got their chance to shine or were ruined by their company because of not making enough money or forcing to change something that wasn't broken pretty much. That's what I really admire about this show. It tells its story, has fun with its cast of characters, and does what it wants.
I think dumb things are freaking cool, and
Thank you for watching. I had fun watching this show, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like down below and comment what things you might want me to review next. Of course, subscribe if you haven't, and I hope you enjoyed this video, man.
Also, I didn't know where to put this, so here you go.
hands off! No one traumatizes these weirdly hot robots but me!
Okay, now that we got this all out of the way, I would like to introduce my new show idea. Okay, so we open up to this guy. His name's Peter Griffin, and he's a little bit of a family guy. Are you kidding me? Someone made this already?